Okay, hello and welcome to the first of several round one previews this week. We're going to try to preview every single game of the NCAA tournament. It is now May. This is where it really counts. We're down to now 17 teams on the men's side, slightly more than that on the women's side, and then obviously Division II and Division III as well. And a lot of good teams have been sent home. Obviously, most viewers will know where my allegiances lie, and a very, very tough one for the Ivy League this weekend and this year. Only a one-bid league. I think there's a lot of pretty good teams this year, and unfortunately, the RPI seemed like it was a deciding factor. And we'll see in future years, as we've seen in the last couple of years. Sometimes it favors your conference, and sometimes it doesn't. And you have to try to live with it when it doesn't go your way. But I want to do a deep dive on all 8 games that we're going to see this weekend on the men's side. And I kind of tried to approach this as if I was coaching and, kind of what I would look for on either side. So we'll start with the Georgetown versus Penn State game. It's the 8-9 seed, a really tough draw in this tournament. It does seem like Notre Dame is better than the rest of the field by a decent margin. So this 8-9 hole is a tough one, but both these teams will be glad to be in the tournament. Obviously, Georgetown earned the way with an AQ. Penn State seemed like they were the last team in, so I'm sure they're just glad to have a chance to keep playing here. The game will be at Georgetown. I think that's important. Obviously, home field advantage is big. Not too much distance between the schools, and obviously Penn State's a national brand. Should be a pretty fun crowd in D.C. on Saturday, presumably a nice spring day in the capital area. So kind of looking at the tail of the tape here. So Penn State's 6th in overall efficiency, 7th offensively, 8th defensively. Georgetown very close, 10th overall efficiency, 8th offensive, actually 22nd defensive efficiency. That's all courtesy of Lacrosse reference. But want to make some notes about the differences between their efficiency and their raw numbers. So Penn State is 7th in offensive efficiency, but they are 15th in scoring offense. Now, what accounts for that? Well, for Penn State, it's mostly faceoffs. They're pretty low nationally in faceoffs, 61st in the country, 44% in faceoffs. It's going to be a major story in this game. So while they're efficient on offense, their raw numbers are low because of the possessions. Now, Georgetown is 8th in offensive efficiency, but 24th in scoring offense, with a positive, good faceoff. They've had 19th in the nation, 55%. So what does that suggest? Well, it suggests a slow pace. And one of the interesting things that I didn't know we tracked, which we do apparently, is Georgetown's had 33 shot clock violations this season versus, I believe, just 15 for Penn State. So it kind of shows that, Georgetown is willing to work it late in the possession and they're efficient, but they're going to take their time and get good shots. That kind of blends out for both teams in shooting percentage. Both of them are in the top 15, I believe, nationally in shooting percentage. One of the stories of this game will be the major story will be the difference in specialists. So you have the face-offs, and then you have the goaltenders. Jack Fracione is having an incredible season, Big Ten Specialist of the Year, 5th nationally in save percentage. Anderson Moore for Georgetown has been great, 53%, just a freshman. We'll be looking for his first taste of NCAA tournament action. But I think, obviously, an advantage for Penn State in the goal, presumably, and an advantage for Georgetown in the faceoffs. Whichever, if those net at close to even, this will be a close game. But if Georgetown or Penn State can tilt either of those in their direction, obviously, I think that's going to be a major story in this game. So a big focus on Moore in the Georgetown goal and on the Penn State faceoff crew, because they're going to be very... Okay, let's get into some keys to the game, starting with Penn State. So one of the advantages for Penn State in this game is they had actually a pretty close scout with their Michigan game on the weekend of what Georgetown is going to look like. And what do I mean by that? Well, good faceoff, outstanding faceoff player from Michigan, Wheatfeld, and a great passer, Ryan Cohn from Michigan, TJ Haley, they'll see from Georgetown, who has almost 3 times as many assists as goals, which is rare for a high caliber player, and some great shooters. Tiernan and among others for Michigan. And then Bundy and Carroll can shoot it as well as anyone can in the country. But also wanted to talk about how the looks they're gonna see defensively and how they're similar to Michigan. Michigan has Bo Pettersson, one of the best short sticks in the game, a senior, a grown man, or fifth year rather, and Georgetown has Dylan Hess, a lot of the same characteristics. And in the Michigan game, Penn State really struggled to draw slides. I'll show some film clips here in a second, but there were several possessions where they had no matchup changes, no slides against the Michigan defense, and they struggled going after Pettersson. And I think the same might happen with Hess. They're two of the best in the country, and I think Georgetown would be foolish to not watch that Maryland or that Michigan film and see how Michigan really forced them to earn slides. Maryland short stick trainer, number 22, wasn't overly successful. Michigan didn't. Would be surprised if Georgetown goes that route. I think what you'll see is a lot of slow-to-go defense by Georgetown and really forcing these guys to win matchups. Okay, here's a great example of Michigan being slow to slide to Penn State, a tactic I think is pretty likely Georgetown will use. So first possession out of the third quarter, you got Pettersson here, 89. He's on number 35. And then their other short stick for Michigan is guarding number 21. I point that out because they do not create any matchup changes here throughout the entire possession. Pettersson's still on his initial man. The other short stick still on 21. Penn State gets a decent look. And then again, good pick play by Michigan. Pettersson, very good. They let him play in the low angle. They'll do the same for Hess with Georgetown. Just not creating much here by Penn State. Good pick play again. They will finally get a matchup change here, though it's a shorty to shorty, not a huge difference. Decent look for Penn State, misses the cage, and then result here is going to be a shot clock violation. So that kind of leads to the next key is they got to get TJ Malone, their best player, this is Penn State, onto short sticks. Now, thankfully, he's really good at that. He's a great pick setter. I'll have some clips in here, but defenses will just kind of get jittery when their best players are on short sticks. You know, even if it's on Hess, they're going to look to slide, they're going to look to support, and I think that's really key for Penn State. And then in general, they need to set good picks, try to get matchup changes. I think Penn State's got a lot of slick guys. They have a lot of good players in general, you know, looking to create offense off of pick and roll situations, maybe with slip picks or other creative maneuvers. If I was the Penn State coach, I would say set all these hard picks early in the game, try to get Malone onto short sticks. You know, presumably that's going to be the best way to create offense, and especially short sticks other than Dylan Hess. Okay, here's a great example. Malone sets a pretty good pick in the high wing, forces a switch, goes to work a little bit, falls down. It's going to eventually get back to Malone, and Michigan just isn't quite sure what their plan is here. I'm not sure if we're sliding, if we're staying on the ball, and it's a free goal for Malone. And then the biggest key to the game for Penn State, in my opinion, is no goals off faceoffs. They gave a few against Michigan, including off the opening faceoff, and Georgetown has scored a couple, including in the Big East tournament off of faceoffs. Both their faceoff guy, Hess plays the wings, and then obviously they have guys like Graham Bundy who can really sling it on fast break situations. So Penn State has to get aggressive, presumably to force turnovers if they're not winning faceoffs, but they got to be careful about not giving up goals. If I was them, I'd take probably a more conservative approach, try to play 6-on-6 defense, and then go from there. Again, the faceoff goals, they have momentum, and they're just really killers, and Michigan scored right away in that game, and I think that set a very good tone for Michigan and made it tough for Penn State. On the defensive side of the ball, Penn State has to be better in the high wing. Again, I will include film clips. Michigan dominated here at the point of attack, got to the middle on several of their dodges, and Georgetown is talented, and they have great on-the-run shooters. Vardaro can do it, Carroll can do it, Bundy can do it, and they really need to win in the high wing on defense, try to get the play down the alley, and then they got to be careful about letting guys get to the middle because, you know, that's not typically a play you want to slide to too much. It's a great feeding opportunity. But when you have guys like Carroll and Bundy and Vardaro, they can really sling it. You got to be careful. Okay, 2 examples here. Bad defense at the point of attack, gets turned around, gives up the middle, easy skip pass to his shot. And then this is a slightly different one. Penn State just gives up the switch too easily here, out of the high wing, gets Michigan's best player onto a short stick. Doesn't end up hurting them in this situation, but against a team like Georgetown, whose top 4 players do almost all of their damage, they won't want to give up switches so easily in the wings. And then on that note, Penn State has to be ready for the righty pick and rolls. Vardaro is a very good dodger. They'll set a lot of picks for him. He's the midi, but kind of acts like a fourth attackman. They'll set a lot of picks for him on the wing. Penn State screwed up a bunch of picks against Michigan that led directly to goals, and they really do need to be careful and make sure that they're not letting Vardaro get to his sweet spot. He was outstanding in both games on the weekend for Georgetown. He's going to be big in this one. For Penn State, one thing Penn State does very well is they extend to the perimeter. They make plays on the perimeter. I think that'll be important against a Georgetown team, like I said, that has a lot of range. And, they'll get a better game from Frassion. I don't think he was bad by any means in the game on the weekend against Michigan, but he has the ability to go pretty bonkers, which he's been doing, frankly, all season. Michigan probably won the goaltending battle on the weekend. That is unlikely to happen again. So watch for Frassion to have a bounce back. He's obviously pretty important to a team that doesn't typically win a lot of faceoffs. Lacrosse is a game of math. There's only so many ways to get it done, and if you're not going to win faceoffs, you got to get saves. Okay, now switching sides to Georgetown, some of the keys. The first key I had was urgency on the perimeter. Penn State's D-middies are very opportunistic. Michigan threw away a couple easy passes, just throwing the ball away on the perimeter. Their D-middies jumped in the lane, made good plays to intercept the ball. You just can't give away possessions like that. I think the more that Georgetown can emphasize their possession advantage at the faceoff, the better. And the other key with that is no turnovers on the faceoff. Michigan gave a bunch back. You're just ruining your advantage, your most significant advantage against Penn State when you give those back. So they need to be urgent and crisp on the perimeter. No kind of easy, uncaused errors, unforced errors, and especially on the faceoff. I wouldn't take a ton of chances. If you have to go back to your goalie and clear it the right way, do that. But Michigan gave away too many. It didn't end up biting them because they kind of dominated the rest of the game. But I think that is something important against Penn State. Don't ruin your advantage at the faceoff by giving a bunch of them back. Defensively, there's a couple keys here. The first is you have to be ready for these sub picks. Penn State is unbelievable at running their sub picks. They have a lot of right-handed midfielders, and they run their pick around the top of the box. They get their right-handed midfielders going to the right. They pop an attackman to the kind of slot area right in the middle, and then they have a backside attackman as well. I'll include 3 film clips in here against Maryland and Michigan. They've been killing teams on this all season, and Georgetown has to be ready for this. They have to be ready to support if possible, and then they have to be ready to rotate. I'll show one that has Trainer getting it in the middle, one that's a flip to the backside, and then the third one where the Dodger just scores himself. So this is the first one. I think this is their first option. They find Trainer wide open in the middle. This is now against Maryland. Maryland sees the middle guy, tries to get down. They skip it through to the backside. And then if you just try to play it straight up, here's against Maryland again, same play, shooter just takes it. The next key for Georgetown is they have to be ready to guard Malone with a short stick. He's going to get a short stick. He's a great picker. He's unusually good at picking for a star player. Most star players don't set many picks. Obviously, they have them set for them. And typically, that's how you see it done. You see short stick or a shorty setting the pick for the best player, trying to run him off and trying to get a switch. Penn State does it the opposite. They often have Malone set picks for other players, for short stick players in the high wing, especially on the lefty wing, and he's very good at it. It's a very effective way at getting him switches. Again, I will include some film clips of this. Georgetown has to be ready to support these matchups. They have to have a plan. They don't want to be too urgent, especially if it's Hess, let him play. And then if not, they have to be ready to support in a logical way. Malone's a very good feeder, the best offensive player this year in the Big Ten. And if they just recklessly slide, they're going to be in trouble. And then continuing on that trend defensively, Georgetown's got to be stickier inside. They gave up a bunch of easy goals, I thought, to Providence and Villanova of just not being tough enough on the interior of the defense. Penn State is pretty slick. They will throw those in, especially Malone. Trainer is an unbelievable finisher in there. So you got to be sticky to your men inside. And I think the best way to think about it is this. Penn State is good at stacking small advantages to create success. Georgetown needs to not allow small advantages and force them to create big advantages, where I think the athleticism of Georgetown and their short stick play, will probably be an asset, especially again with Hess. And then that leads into the next kind of subplot of the game for Georgetown is how do they support dodges against their short sticks other than Hess? Teams are going to target their other guys, and they've had success particularly sweeping to the middle from the high wing and then inverts behind the goal. These seem to be two areas that make the Georgetown defense a little bit nervous, give them a little bit of pause, especially again when it's not Hess, and Georgetown has to be ready to support in those situations. And then for Penn State, you got to put yourself in those situations. I would expect lots of inverts against other players other than Hess, and then in the high wing, look to sweep instead of getting down the alley. That seems to give this Georgetown defense a little bit of trouble. Lastly, to end it off, 2 X factors to watch in this game. For Penn State, it's number 21, Luke Wallstrom. He's been their main invert candidate behind the net. His ability to make stuff happen and create slides back there will be super important for the Nittany Lions. Then for Georgetown, a team that hasn't had a ton of secondary scoring this year, it's number 3, Jack Schubert. In just 7 games, he's got 8 goals, 4 assists, had a big one on the weekend, has the ability to score unassisted, pretty sick lefty shot there that he's got, and he can really get it off without much warning. Hope you enjoyed this format. Lots more coming this week. We'll probably go Maryland, Princeton tomorrow as we get down closer to the number 1 seed. And yeah, thanks for watching.